So you've probably heard that Elon Musk is leading a kind of mega audit of US government spending. His Department of Government Efficiency isn't tackling everything at once though. They're going through it systematically. And first up for scrutiny is the US Agency for International Development, or USAID, the agency that distributes billions of dollars in aid around the world. The new head of the agency, Marco Rubio, has announced that certain USAID programs will be shut down, and what remains will be merged into the State Department, effectively dissolving USAID itself altogether. But what exactly is USAID? What does it pay for? And why should American taxpayers fund it? Let's break it down. USAID's story begins in the aftermath of World War II. Europe was devastated, and there was real concern in America that economic collapse could push countries towards communism and the Soviet Union. As more and more countries in Eastern and Central Europe turned red, in 1948 Congress passed the Economic Cooperation Act, better known as the Marshall Plan. The US allocated the equivalent of over $170 billion in today's money in grants and loans to help fund the rebuilding of a ruined Europe. And it worked. Western Europe rose from the ashes, not communist, but a loyal ally and trading partner for the United States, and a bulwark against the Soviet Union. It proved that money put in the right places can reap tangible results. The Soviet Union didn't sit on its hands. Through its own Marshall Plan, the Molotov Plan, and later Comecon, the USSR also forged closer alliances with its own sphere of influence. Subsequently, a Cold War battle for hearts and minds took place across the globe through foreign aid. Promising young leaders were brought to America to earn degrees at American colleges, while the Soviet Union built projects like the Aswan Dam in Egypt and brought students to the Soviet Union. Then in 1961, to the backdrop of a growing Berlin Wall, the US Congress passed the Foreign Assistance Act to reorganize the structure of US foreign assistance programs. Its objectives were to create new markets for American exports by reducing poverty, and also to steer countries away from communism by helping them thrive under capitalism. It also mandated the creation of a single agency to administer this aid, and President John F. Kennedy created it by executive order. He called it the US Agency for International Development, or USAID. For the next 30 or so years, USAID would leave its mark all over the world, promoting America as it went. It funded agricultural advances that ended famine in non-communist Asia, helping to rebuild South Korea into a major economy, and bringing thousands of students from neutral countries to study in the US. It promoted economic growth and stability. It helped steer nations away from communism and towards American influence, contributing to the eventual US victory in the Cold War. And so in the 21st century, the details are different, but the objectives of USAID remain the same. For example, USAID money goes into supporting citizen journalism in Cambodia, where the press isn't free to report on its government. It's in America's interest to have a democratic trading partner rather than an authoritarian one. In the Philippines, USAID money goes towards relief of victims of storms and flooding. The Philippines happen to be one of America's oldest and strongest allies in this part of the world, and it has taken a stronger stance against China than neighbouring countries. Projects like this, at least in the short term, strengthen the United States' soft power with grateful states, and in the long term might build stronger allies and trading partners. But now Trump and Musk are painting a very different picture of what USAID does, arguing that it's not value for money. They apply in their rhetoric that USAID is progressive and woke, an antithesis to conservative Republican values. A White House press release outlined a selection of other projects that USAID has funded, and the word selection is important here.
$70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland.
$2 million for sex changes in Guatemala.
More than 8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico.
$6 million for tourism in Egypt.
$47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia.
$15 million for contraceptives and condoms in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan.
But this list is being very economical with the truth. Let's take the project in Ireland, for example. First, it wasn't a musical. Second, it wasn't funded by USAID. In actual fact, the money went towards a music festival to promote the US and Irish shared values of diversity, and was funded by the State Department. Another cited example is thousands of dollars being paid to centrist news site Politico. But in fact, those are subscriptions to the Politico website, which is used by many institutions and does cost a lot of money. Now, the point is, you don't need to be a supporter of LGBT rights, birth control, or a die-hard lefty to recognise that this list was carefully curated to rile up conservative voters. And it's a tactic that has been tried before. Senators and members of Congress have often vowed to roll back USAID during their election campaigns. Even Marco Rubio recognised the fact in 2019 when he said that anyone claiming foreign aid cuts could balance the budget was lying to you. The reality is, USAID is an easy political target. The beneficiaries are foreigners, and most American voters don't directly see its benefits. Cutting it gives the illusion of saving money without taxpayers feeling the impact. But this leads us to one thing we haven't talked about yet, which is the actual cost. In the 2023 fiscal year, the US distributed $72 billion in international aid, 2/3 of that directly via USAID. That's a lot of money. That's a lot more money than any other single country. But it's only 0.33% of America's GDP. In fact, in GDP terms, America is right down there near the bottom of the pile. You'll have to make your own mind up if that's a good deal or not. This administration is the first to come to the conclusion that it's not. The United States could do a lot of other things with $72 billion. It could give money to veterans, put it into education, or reduce taxes. We'll have to wait and see what path they choose. President Trump and Senator Rubio have said that USAID will be incorporated into the Department of State. Incidentally, the Department of State already allocates aid, but with a different focus. Its interests are geopolitical rather than developmental. The distinction might sound small, but to give an example, the Department of State and the USAID have both allocated money to Ukraine. The Department of State helps fund armaments and training programs. The USAID gives money for food and water and medical supplies, and it helps keep the Ukrainian economy afloat. So if USAID goes and the Department of State remains, we now have a fair idea what that would mean for the future of US foreign aid. So what are the likely effects? Well, the UK's Foreign Secretary David Lammy has offered some neighbourly advice. In an interview with The Guardian, Lammy said the previous UK government's decision to strip back its own aid body, the Department for International Development, has weakened Britain's soft power, its global goodwill and diplomatic strength. He also warned that as the US and Britain withdraw, their rivals China and Russia are ready to fill the gap. China in particular has been expanding its influence through the Belt and Road Initiative, spending over $1 trillion on gas pipelines, railways and other infrastructure projects worldwide, much of it in the form of loans, not grants. It's hard to pin down exactly how much China spends on foreign aid, but estimates for 2022 suggest around $7.9 billion, likely much less than the US. Still, China sees how important soft power is, and just as the US and China's rivalry is heating up, Trump's America First approach could leave little US-shaped holes around the world, ready for China to fill. Thank you as always for watching our videos. If you enjoy our journalism, please do click that little subscribe button there.